Hello and welcome to the Revolut Insider podcast, where we explore Revolut's rocket ship from the inside out, one episode at a time. I'm your host, Alex Carrill, and joining me today is David Tirado, Vice President of Global Business. Hi, David. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, because not only are you the Vice President of Global Business, but you're also a partner and part of the Group Executive Committee here at Revolut.
Yes, that's a long title, yeah.
Can you give me an overview a bit of what that is exactly and what you do here?
Like many people in Revolut, we have different hats. One of my hats is I own the Department of Global Business, which is a department which works across the different product lines, and we are in charge of the gross margin of the company, effectively. So working cross-functionally and having different roles, like looking at the business cases for new bets, looking at different areas around cost control, and looking at different strategic projects in order to bring more gross profit to the company. And as part of that, I'm part of the Group Exco, leading commercial activities, bringing deals and different commercial agreements that we have in order to get the validation from the group.
Wow, a lot to do, but you're managing it quite well.
Well, I try to, but of course, as you can imagine, we are super busy in the team and also in the function. So we also work with the function of global business development, and we have different business development and commercial teams embedded into the different areas of the business, looking after a lot of things from commercial execution, optimization, and also scaling and driving different parts of the business and new bets.
How many different teams do you oversee in the role that you're in?
There are about 15 different teams that we oversee. Now,
Wow.
There is a difference. Some of them, they are within global business. Those are teams that have a bit of more cross-functional remit, where we see synergies of them working across different domains. Examples of this is the team that is led by Mass, which is looking after wealth and trading, or core payments, open banking, and so on. But then there are other teams that are commercial and BD embedded into the functions and into the different departments that are looking specifically at driving and scaling different activities within these functions. One of them is the BD team on acquiring, for example, which is effectively looking at what activities can we do in order to scale through partnerships and through different business development activities, the acquiring business.
And I know that's a big part of what Revolut is trying to do, is scale different features and across the globe. So what impact do you have when it comes to scaling?
On one hand, we look at the P&L. How can we optimize? How we can look at different commercial initiatives that can bring and improve the gross profit margin. Part of this is, of course, negotiation, but part of that is also different projects like the ones that we are leading now with the services team in order to improve the efficiencies that we have in that area. There is another angle, which is about driving and scaling new areas. For example, the partnerships that we are doing with acquiring that I just mentioned, with the partnerships with Stripe or with the different e-commerce platforms like Shopify. Another example of this is, of course, the partnerships that we have been doing in other areas of the business. For example, trying to improve products that we have already now.
Yeah.
And then there is another area, which is, of course, new bets, coming up with new initiatives, new business cases that we work together with the product teams, driving those within the company.
Well, I know that one doesn't just become a vice president overnight. So can you tell me a bit about your journey here at Revolut?
I joined a bit more than 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, and I started as director of business development within the new team that was just set up, global business, in order to drive global business development activities, but also improve the P&L and drive different partnerships across the business. And the team has had new remits being added over time, as you can imagine. I remember the first year was all about making the company profitable. It was during COVID, and as many people, my onboarding was fully remote. And then I remember that over time, the remit kept increasing from like looking at how can we improve the profitability of the company, how we can be EBITDA positive at the end of the year in 2020, to how can we scale different areas of the business, including growth, setting up the growth teams for business development, or setting up the commercial teams to, over the last few years, how can we make a little bit more sustainable the unit economics of the different products that we work with, and not only about, making it profitable, but making sure that they scale in a very sustainable way.
And you came in as a director of business development, but what did you do in your previous experience that you had this knowledge to be able to do this here at Revolut?
I'm a bit old for a Revoluter to some extent, being working in different areas for the last 20 years. I started my career as a developer, believe it or not, where I was working in different startups. Then, of course, I started moving across different areas of the business. At some point, I was leading for 4 years the new technology teams of EMEA for Motorola. Then I had a bit of a pivot in my career, moving a bit more into commercial, did an MBA, and then I was running different strategy teams in telco and technology. And then I worked for 4 years leading all the business development and commercial teams for the Americas region for Vodafone. And then my last role before joining Revolut, I was leading the Internet of Things division for Europe of Vodafone. And then at that point, I decided to join Revolut after, like many Revoluters, after a call from a recruiter to come and try to build the commercial and business development functions. And of course, I don't regret it at all. It has been a fantastic experience and super, super exciting journey, full of learnings and full of experiences, of course.
And 4 years into your role here at Revolut, what excites you about your role now? Or what excites you about the future in your role?
For me, Revolut is extremely exciting. It's the best company I've ever worked, especially if you are curious and you like to learn about new things and you like to get into new projects, and it's the perfect place to be. Things that excite me more about Revolut is I think the potential is immense. So on one hand, you have all these new countries that we are launching, like Mexico, Brazil, India, the work that we are doing in Japan, US, after the success we had in Europe, you feel that we can really become the most global financial services entity in the world. And it excites me a lot, the fact that you can go and travel to India, travel to Brazil, and everyone will know Revolut, and everyone will be a little bit of an anchor for the different countries where we operate. The other thing that excites me a lot is the capabilities that we have in order to build products that are changing customers' lives. So when I look at what we have done this year, launching things like the eSIM, which is a product that you wouldn't expect from a financial institution, launching a lot of products in the financial services space, like doing points. We have many more of these bets coming up. We are evaluating them every week, and the capabilities that this company has in order to not only become this global player, but also to come up with new products that you wouldn't expect from a financial institution that are extremely exciting and extremely good and with super good user experience is something that excites me a lot. And I think that if we can keep doing this for the next 5 years and keep working at this pace, I think that the opportunities are immense, and it will be an extremely enriching experience for everyone in the rocket ship.
Sounds really exciting. And you have experience as a developer in the past. Do you think that that's helped you having this foresight of what new features or where the space is going?
Well, I have a very, very deep respect for every developer. I couldn't call myself one because I stopped developing many years ago.
Okay.
And I move into the commercial space. I think what it helps me is really to understand how things are being built, and probably to have this mentality, which I love, that you can do everything, right? You can really build everything if you understand what are the ins and outs of everything that we are trying to build. And as long as you can really map out that there is a customer demand for something and that there is also a good business case to make it work, you can go really deep and build it yourself. So I think it's helping me a lot in the fact that we are also challenging all the time why we cannot build things in-house to own the experience, to make it better. And also in the way that we make decisions on the long run, because at the end of the day, you want to have full control. And in order to build a sustainable company, many times you need to have full control of the ecosystem, even though you keep working with partners. But make sure that when you are developing new features for customers, this strategic thinking about how to come up with a product, how to build the right unit economics, and how to make it sustainable over time will happen. It's very important, that the background that I think that this balance of commercial, engineering, developer brings.
For sure. And I don't think that a lot of people dream of becoming a business development officer. But do you think they realize that they can do this after working in different areas, or once they realize that they have the transferable skills to do this?
It's a good question. I think that business development is, for me, the definition is creating new business lines. The way that business development in Revolut works is a bit different than in other companies. Other companies, business development means M&A. In other ones, it means a bit more sales. In Revolut, the definition is more a commercial person. It's the people that are working together with the product teams, with the operations teams, in order to either do commercial agreements to scale those products or commercial agreements in order to improve the unit economics of the products that we are building and making them sustainable and revenue and gross margin accretive for the company.
And what do you think are some skills that have helped you find success here at Revolut?
In Revolut, I think that there are three things that for me, especially for the commercial area, are key. Number one is always focus on impact. So the fact that you are really, really focused on what is the real outcome of everything that you are doing, regardless of whether you are putting more time or less time, just focusing on key parameters, super important. So people that are very results orientated, I think that that's one skill which is very important. Second one is what we call internally think deeper. Mm-hmm. The fact that you always try to look at whether there is a better alternative, another way to do things better, another way to reach the outcome that you want in a more effective or efficient way. That's quite important. And the third one is execution capabilities, is what we call get it done. Mm-hmm. So those are the three skills that normally we value more. Being able to be really results orientated, being able to execute, and having a very execution focused attitude. And the third one is this thinking deeper mentality mm-hmm. of looking at things deeper and trying to figure out ways in order to achieve your objectives, even if they look impossible.
And I have no doubt that these three skills have helped you. Like you said earlier, that you're responsible for optimizing profitability. So how do you approach profitability in the context of a global business like Revolut?
I think that is very important because now there is this debate of is profitability a bit misaligned with growth or can you do both at the same time? I think that is super important to make sure that you don't compromise the sustainability of the business in order to achieve profitability. But also you don't compromise growth. So with that, what I mean is you need to look at the long term. If you have the tools and capabilities to make the company profitable and you know that you have a very healthy business, it's fine for me to invest really into different areas like product or growth, as long as tomorrow, if you can readjust the business because you have some headwinds that you were not expecting, you can readjust and fine-tune a couple of things and then bring it back. So my view is what we try to do is to make sure that we have the right unit economics in place across the different main areas of the business. Mm-hmm. So we can have a lot of headroom in order to invest in growth and to invest in new products. So whenever that headroom is not there because the market is changing or because there are things like COVID that are hitting us, we can really quickly readjust and then keep a healthy headroom in order to keep operating in a sustainable way and potentially leverage those crisis situations to invest more and to make things that are going to make the company better. When we talk about profitability, we have also to bring customers in mind. So Revolut has the view that anything that we do has to be 10 times better than what is out there in the market. That has also a component around the value. One is the experience, of course. The other one is the fact that our products have much better features as well. They give more value than anything else in the market. The advantage we have is that being a digital company, we have a much better headroom than other traditional companies with more legacy and more heritage on a number of things to keep offering 10 times better value to customers while keeping a healthy bottom line, to keep developing new features and to keep doing more things which are going to benefit to the customers in the long run.
Definitely. And when it comes to initiatives that you're working on, how do you prioritize or what do you decide is the next thing that we're going to be doing?
That's probably the most difficult thing. When Revolut was a bit younger in any startup, we have a lot of ideas and a lot of ways in which we think that we can make an impact. But as you say, it's very difficult to determine which one is going to be successful. So the way that we try to do it is in a very, I would say, industrialized way, a very process-driven way. Mm-hmm. In which we try to rank everything under the same model, looking at either if it's a new bet or a new idea or a new product or a new feature that we want to launch, or if it's an area in which we feel that there are some optimizations that we can do in order to create more value to reinvest somewhere else. So the process that we run is very methodical, really based on business cases, really based on data. And again, at some point, there is always a view of how feasible is this? How is it an easy win? So it's really a matrix in which you score on the 2 dimensions of impact versus feasibility. And then we run it across a number of areas, from cost to revenue to gross profit, revenue minus cost, to also incremental capability to scale. Again, I really like the process that we have put together with the New Bets team on looking at different milestones, looking at, let's prioritize these initiatives. Let's look at whether they are hitting the milestone, and then run another reprioritization, whether we can go to the next milestone. And then at any point in time, where are the resources delivering more in the company based on the different stages of the initiatives and also based on the future outlook that they have.
And I mean, we're talking that this is what goes into a large global company like Revolut with presence in countries around the world. But how do you think a smaller business can apply these same principles to their business to try to see some growth or improve their operations?
I think that Revolut, in fact, is still a number of different businesses and different small lines of businesses. In some cases, some of them have become really big, like our card payment line of business, our paid plans business, a subscription business. Of course, at the end, we are getting more balances from customers. We are becoming a bank. Areas like credit or treasury are becoming bigger. But again, they operate with similar principles of running, being ultimately profitable, each of them, looking at the bottom line, having their own P&L, each of them, and making sure that they are all P&L accretive centers. At the end, when you look at a small business, you can apply the same principles of always trying to look at the bottom line, always trying to look at, in the areas that are growing, what additional efficiencies can you drive? How can you scale the ones that are better performing? And also, quite important, how can you make sure that also you don't keep a lot of bets over time if they are not performing? So if you're a small company and then you're looking at what is the next product that you want to incorporate into your portfolio, if you are a retail shop or if you are a small, software boutique that is delivering some software. I think that at the end it's very important to optimize the resources on what features do you want to deliver. But at the same time, making sure that on the 80% that is getting your main revenue streams, you try to keep optimizing those so you can give customers more value and keep investing in other areas.
I like that. I like that it always goes back to giving customers more value. And what can you do to scale the things that are working to keep providing that for customers? And do you see any mistakes in the industry that businesses make often?
There are 2 things that I always look at. One is not cut your losses early if you can, not keep elongating bets. Sometimes I see that we bet on something and then we keep it for too much time, expecting that the same actions will deliver different results. Second is always go with the wave. I'm a big fan of another very famous podcast called Acquire, where they talk about the 7 principles that make companies successful. One of them is to be contrarian. So I really like companies that go a little bit against the wave. And while there is a lot of volatility in the market on, let's say, one specific product, you try to bet on the new product that is going to be successful in the next wave. But also trying to be a bit disruptive in the way that you do things. So what I feel is now in this time, everyone is looking at what the competitors are doing, at what is going on in the market. I think that sometimes you don't focus really on what are the bigger problems that are out there that no one is looking at, and how can you solve them and make value for customers. And this you can apply not only to product, which at the end is the main thing, is like the key DNA of Revolut, but also at the way that you do marketing, even at the way in which you do an area like commercial, which is mine, and the way in which you optimize processes, the way in which you structure the company, unit economics on the different products. People are cut on certain ways, maybe things that have been done the same way for a long time, some prejudices in the way that you evaluate things. And sometimes you don't look at, the big picture. So I think that people are following too much the trends and not looking that much at the core problems that are there that you can solve and ways to solve them in a different way or ways to do things differently.
And I think not only is Revolut doing that and doing things differently, but also in a very simple way. And I think that principle of trying to simplify things makes it that much more, let's say, attractive for customers, for potential employees, because there is this beauty in making things simpler.
No, I fully agree. For me, that simplicity angle, especially when you're talking about an app and a product like Revolut, which is having a lot of different features, that simplicity is key and is probably the most difficult thing to achieve, is to have everything integrated in a way that is seamless with the different features and removing friction in every single area that the customer is touching. That's probably the most difficult thing to do. And probably the thing that differentiates Revolut most is the quality of our designers, products, and of course, engineers.
Yeah. Well, I think we're doing it. We're making things simple and we're changing the way people do money.
Absolutely.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break. And David, when we come back, I want to ask you about creating external partnerships for the business and maybe get some tips on negotiation from you.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back with more Insider Views. This podcast is brought to you by Revolut People. Revolut People is our very own people management platform. It's been the engine behind our growth, taking us from 250 to more than 10,000 employees in just 5 years. From performance management to HR and hiring, we're now helping other businesses solve the same problems we faced as a growing tech company. Find out more at revolutpeople.com. Revolut People is only available in the UK and the European Economic Area. Terms and conditions apply. We are back on the Revolut Insider podcast with David Tirado, Vice President of Global Business, partner, and part of the Group Executive Committee here at Revolut. David, before the break, we were talking about optimizing profit for the company, which is one of your main responsibilities, but another key area in your role features new bets and existing relations. Can you tell me about some partnerships that you've been directly involved with at Revolut?
Well, many of them, but probably the ones that I'm involved every day, and some of the most relevant ones are the ones first on banks. Of course, we have a lot of partners on that front that we work with in many different angles, from treasury to payments. The other angle, of course, is what we call the schemes, but the main card schemes, which Visa, MasterCard are key core partners for us. And then, of course, players like Google are super relevant for us. So again, I would say that we have the 10 major partnerships in the company that the team covers directly. But probably these three areas of technology, core banking partners and core payment partners, are the three ones where we are spending most of the time.
And I know that part of building great partnerships in business also deals with negotiation. What experience do you have with negotiations? And do you have any tips for our listeners on how to approach negotiations?
For me, negotiations is something that at the end everyone does, regardless of which area you work. If you are working, of course, in the commercial front, is quite important. There is a lot of theory about negotiations. People like you have the books of William Murray, tell you about how to structure. But one of the books that I read recently that I like more is called Never Split the Difference, which is a bit about trying to think a bit differently and don't be ultra rational and try to be a bit more playing with the emotional side of what can you achieve. My main tip for everyone is, like with everything in life, is really to prepare very, very well. So have a very good structure, really understand what are the numbers, really go deep into the business case, into what is the outcome and the impact that you want to achieve, what is the right benchmark. Try to do a lot of work, but preparation for me is the most important thing, really understanding what is needed, what you need, what is the value that you can create. And also being a bit bold. Over the years, you realize that sometimes you can achieve much more than what you expect. And also you can create more value as well. I think this is quite important also to have a perception that in an economy like ours, with ecosystems across the different chains in which we operate, you realize that you can also create quite a lot of value for partners, and especially companies like Revolut that are growing quite a lot. If you are talking about the partnerships that we do in growth or the partnerships that we have with key infrastructure providers, either in banking or in cards, if we are successful, they are extremely successful. And that creates a very positive, I would say, cycle and like a virtuous cycle that creates more and more value for every party. And then we enhance the ecosystem. And of course, having customers there, they benefit from the fact that we create a product which some partners are also contributing to, which is becoming more widely spread, which becomes better the more customers that are using it and giving us feedback. And at the end of the day, everyone wins.
Yeah. And now having the experience that you do, what would you tell yourself when you were just starting out in your career? What advice would you give in younger David?
The important thing is to jump into something that you really believe on. A company, founders, a product that you really believe on, that motivates you to work harder in order to achieve the mission of that company or what you want to achieve. Disregard a little bit, and it's funny that I'm saying that being a commercial executive of this company, but disregard a little bit the short-term gain. Look more at whether your motivation for that specific role or that specific product or that specific company or that specific problem that you are trying to solve is giving you. And then I think the rest will flow, because if you are passionate about it, you will work really hard in order to achieve what you want to achieve, and then you will become really good at it. Your product will become extremely good. It will be highly demanded, and then success will come. But I think it's super important to be ultra-driven, ultra-focused on what you are doing and be willing to put as much time as is required in order to solve it.
I love that. And that's part of what we do here at Revolut is we work hard, but we have this greater goal that we're all working toward together. So it's nice to feel that energy and that motivation among your peers here.
Absolutely.
Well, David, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much.
And for those listening, thank you so much. You can add the podcast to your favorites so you don't miss an episode, and follow us on Instagram at Revolut Insider. Thanks for tuning in to the Revolut Insider podcast, where we explore Revolut's rocket ship from the inside out. Until next time, remember, the sky's not the limit, it's just the beginning. Revolut, change the way you money.